Hi, this is Mrs. Norman. I'm here in my kitchen, and for today we'll just pretend it's the Castlemont kitchen. And I'm going to be making some blueberry muffins with you and teach you how to do it. And the cool thing about it is blueberries are really healthy and good for you, and muffins are yummy. And most of you probably will have the ingredients that it takes to do this simple recipe for, they're called quick and easy blueberry muffins. So I wanted to refer to your benchmark. You have been reading Buyers and Sellers, and there's a whole bunch of stories in here that have to do with muffins, basically, or baked goods. One of the first stories is the short read, Fresh from the Market, and it tells you all about the farmer's market, and they have all kinds of things to buy there. Most of those are closed right now, but they'll be opening up again, and you can find fruits and vegetables, and they sell their baked goods. Sometimes you'll find art and fresh flowers and different arts and crafts and kinds of spices. So baked goods, that would be like muffins and fresh fruits. And it's kind of funny. This story is a cute make-believe story, fantasy fiction about these animals, the bear and the goat, and they're in business, goat and bear in business. And you'll see the little bubble on his head. It looks like he's thinking about, to me, it looks like just like a blueberry muffin or some type of muffin, but he calls them raisin buns. So it's almost like a raisin muffin. Some people use different words. And then, of course, the bear was selling the potatoes. And here's a nice picture in the story that you could see with the goat's great raisin buns. They're all stacked up, and they look all nice and colorful. You use the little paper cup holders like we're going to be using to use these to make both cupcakes and muffins. So that story's a fun one. And then one of the stories you may have already read or will be reading, it's called A Baker's Dozen. And this one talks about a woman who goes to the store to get 12 rolls. And as most of you may know already, 12 is a dozen. That's how many, when you get a dozen cookies, if you have 2 dozen, you'd have 24, and 3 would be 36. So a dozen means 12, but a lot of the donut places, if you go get donuts and ask for a dozen, they give you an extra one, and they make it 13. So this story, she decides the rolls are too hard, and then she wants a dozen muffins. And then he gave her that extra bonus one. People always feel like they get a great deal if they get a baker's dozen. And that's 13 instead of 12. And then you may have seen the video, and maybe you tried to make some orange juice yourself. Obviously you can buy the orange juice at the store, but Miss Lycum showed you how to make orange juice, and that would go very nicely. A glass of apple juice or orange juice, lemonade, or something when you make your muffins. Have it for breakfast or for a snack. And then another story that reminds me of the muffins is about the peanut butter. And I know that some of you are allergic to peanuts, so and you can't have peanut butter. And this story, you could read about that. But also, Miss Lycum made some butter with you. And if you haven't made that, or you've made it once and you could do a second time, butter tastes really good on the muffins. You could add that. And then finally, another story that has blueberry muffins, actual blueberry ones, is Market Day. And this story tells all about all the fresh fruits and vegetables that are sold. And Mrs. Dart, conveniently her name is Dart, like Julie Dart, the author of a couple of the storybooks that I've read to you, Layla Saves the Day, and also The Moon Was Hiding, The Night the Moon Was Hiding. But it just so happens, it's a coincidence that there's a Mrs. Dart in here, and she sells muffins made from her fresh blueberries. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing today. And these are the things that you're going to need. You, of course, will need blueberries to put in the blueberry muffins. And then the dry ingredients you'll need some flour. You will need some sugar. You will also need some baking powder. And don't be confused because there's baking soda too, and that's the one that has the arm with the muscle, and it's usually yellow or orangish, and that's Arm & Hammer. That is not the one you want. You want baking powder. And then you need some salt, and then the liquid ingredients, you'll need some milk, not a whole lot. I think it only calls for about, a third to a half a cup of milk. So you don't need too much milk. And then you'll need a vegetable oil, but the key to this vegetable oil, it should be one that's neutral flavored. So like canola, vegetable, or grapeseed. And then you're also gonna, for part of the liquid, you will need vanilla extract, vanilla flavoring, and then you will also need just one egg. I got out my little carton. And then in order to cook them in, it's just like the pan that you would make muffins or cupcakes. This one will hold 12, and that's a nice array there. You can see there's 4, 4, and 4 when I hold it this way. So it'd be 4 plus 4 plus 4 if I'm looking at the columns, and that's 12. Or if I turn it this way, then I have an array of 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. And that is also 12. Now, the key to this recipe is if you want nice, big, round, really large size muffins, then they suggest you only make 8. And, but if you'd rather have smaller ones, then you can do all 12. They just won't be quite as big. And if you have little mini muffins, you'll have to check on them, and the cooking time, the time for them baking in the oven might be a little different too. But it could make about 20 or 22 mini ones. All right, so you will also need a couple more tools, things for measuring cups. You may have one that's glass that looks like this. You'll need a nice big one that goes up to, about 2 cups, which is equivalent to 16 ounces or a pint. This one's really big. This one gives me lots of room, and it goes up to 4 cups. And then it gives me how many ounces on the other side. So that's a good way to measure when I get both of those. For the dry measurements, you can use these type of cups. So when you're mixing, one of the key things about the muffins is you don't want a power mixer, and you don't want to mix it too hard. I've been learning that that's not good. If you want those real nice soft cupcakes, almost like cupcakes, but muffins, then you definitely need to mix it just very gently and slowly. It's not a vigorous thing. And also, these are really great for mixing. They're just spatulas, and they're rubber on the end. Sometimes they are white or clear color. The ones I happen to have are blue and red. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, and I'll have the recipe laid out for you so you could look at it too. I have my recipe here. I have listed everything that I would need and how much of each thing. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put all the dry ingredients into a bowl. So we're going to start with the flour. And this is a brand new thing of flour, so I'm going to open this up. I thought this kind would be good because it has a Ziploc that reseals. So for my flour, I'm going to use one of my dry mix. I'm going to need a cup. And usually with flour, when I had cooking in high school, we would learn that, you know, you can kind of tap it down and maybe level it off, you know, but you don't want to pack it too tightly or anything. Okay, so there's a cup. Do 1 cup, and I need another half. So here's a half size measuring cup, and then I'll just get it kind of full, and then I'll just sort of level it off to make it even. Okay, so there's 1.5 cups of flour, and I'll need 3/4 cups of sugar. Your sugar might be in a bag labeled. The best kind is granulated sugar, just plain old regular sugar. They recommend, but as you know, there's brown sugar and there's other types of sugar. So as far as the sugar goes, you're going to put 3/4 cup. So I am going to get 3/4. I neglected to bring 3/4 over, so if I have a half cup and a 1/4, I bet you that will add up to 3/4 cup. What do you think? I'm going to put 1 in each. I'm going to grab it over here. Yep. It's the lone one I forgot. And let's see if that works. It does 1/2 plus 1/4. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Is 3/4 cup. So sometimes if you don't have the exact measurement, you could, if you know your fractions really well, you can figure out how to make the same thing using some smaller units of measurement. All right. After the sugar, I need 1/4. It says to use fine sea salt, but you know, like really pro cooks have that kind of stuff, and chefs, and I'm really not a pro or expert at cooking, to say the least. And so I'm just going to use this regular Morton salt, and as all I need is 1/4 teaspoon. So you probably have some measuring spoons, and you gotta, TSP stands for teaspoon. If it has a capital T, then that's tablespoon. So there's a big difference. Teaspoons are a lot smaller than a tablespoon, so you don't want to get too much or not enough. So I'm gonna measure it very carefully. I think I might hold it over the counter. That way it's not gonna, if I make it go too fast, I won't get too much salt into my bowl. All right, so here's my 1/4 a cup, and then I need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Here's teaspoon, TSP. Remember, teaspoon, that's the abbreviation. Big giant capital T means tablespoon, and that's a lot larger. And you need the right amount, because it wouldn't taste right and it wouldn't cook very well if you had the wrong amount. So how much of the baking powder again is 2 teaspoons. So I'm going to carefully get in there, and then I just kind of get it, and I can level it out just basically like on the side. It's got this nice little lip here, and I can just even it out. So there is 1 teaspoon, and now I'm gonna add the second. Make it all even at the top. There we go. And again, make sure it's baking powder, just like the powder that you put, soft baking powder, except for it's for baking. Then this is all we need for the dry. So I'm gonna whisk the flour, the sugar, the baking powder, and the salt. And this is what you call a whisk. And mix that together. And again, we're not using any electric things. We don't need that. And that actually is not good to make these muffins. Just gotta be kind of gentle with it. So I'm just gonna mix that up, whisk it together. Some people do that with a fork. If you don't have one of these fancy whisker things, you can use a fork or a spoon or even the spatula that I have right here. Okay, so I mix that up. And then my next thing that I'm going to do is add the oil to a measuring jug that holds at least a cup. So then you can put all your liquids in here. So that's why this handy dandy big plastic one works really well. So now I'm going to start and get these are called, we've got all our dry ingredients here, and then these are the wet ingredients. So in here I'm going to need to add oil that can hold at least 1 cup. This holds 4 cups, so it's plenty. I'm going to put 1/3 cup of the oil. Alright, so I can look in here and my little measurement, the measurements are right inside the cup. And I've got my 1/3 cup in there. Cups on one side and then the ounces are on the other, for the way this one's set up. And you might have a different one that looks more like this. And this one even has milliliters and liters on it, as well as cups and ounces. So, all right, we've got the oil. And then the next thing we need to do is add milk. And for the milk, my recipe says that I should add 1/3 to 1/2 cup milk. And non-dairy would work too, like if you wanted to use a special kind of like almond milk or something. But this is just 2% milk. It's not particular about what type of milk. And when I'm going to use this other cup to put 1/3 to 1/2. All right. So let me look at it. I've got to turn it to the cups because it was in the liters. 1/3 to 1/2. Okay, I'm going to go with the half. All right. I've got my milk in there. I'm going to add my milk right into the oil. You could see it's separating from each other. Okay, so now I'm adding the milk to the oil. Then I add the vanilla, and then I'm going to whisk it all together. I'm going to put the extract in with the oil and the milk. Vanilla extract. I'm going to put 1 full teaspoon, just fill it to the top. That looks kind of weird. It's all oiling up there. And then I need a half. So let's get the half in there. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, so do you see that? I kind of slipped a little. So some went in, so I'm going to pour some back because that was not the best measurement, but it happens. So you gotta have to kind of, work around it. I should have held it off to the side like I did with the salt. All right. Okie doke. So now I'm going to mix this up, and then this will, with all the ingredients, the liquid things, with the milk and the oil and this, it should be about 1 cup. So right around a cup. And the other thing that needs to go in with this wet is the egg. I need to add the egg. Add the egg and fill it. Okay. Alrighty. So gotta have one large. Usually they're labeled, and most of the time you'll find them with the large eggs, large grade A egg, it'll say. Put in an egg, and then I'm going to want to, I think I'll use my whisk that up together, and then all my liquid is just right about a cup, which is all together with everything in there. Okay. I mean, the egg is liquid right now until, like, after you cook an egg, then it becomes a solid, right? Okay, so get that mixed up. It's pretty well. But then I'll be pouring this, and I'm going to add it right into the dry. Pour it in there. And then this is, we don't want to beat it vigorously. We just want to be really gentle and just fold it. Kind of, they call it folding. I know it's not the same as folding paper, but just kind of fold in the flour and the liquid ingredients, getting it kind of mixed up nicely. And you don't want to do it vigorously. It's not at all. You just want to be really mindful of not whipping it around too much. It's not the kind that you want to do that with. For some things, that's how you want it, really super fast, whip it around. Okay, so I've got it in pretty good. Some of it's sticking to this, so sometimes the rubber spatula helps get things off when it sticks to your mixing things like your whisk. And then I noticed that there's still some flour around the side of the bowl, so I'm going to try to get that mixed in a little bit, but I'm still going really slow. I'm not whipping it up. And then now I've got it mixed really well. And the next thing I'm going to do, I've already measured these and washed them. It's a good idea when you have fruit to wash it really good. So I put it in a strainer, and it's all pre-washed. And here is 1 cup. You're going to add about a cup of blueberries. And then you want to be really gentle mixing these in. You don't want to smash them all up. You want to just try to mix them very gently. And after you get those mixed in, and again, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time. As long as the ingredients are mixed up, that's all you need. Don't want to do it too much. And then what you can do is get some type of scoop. I've seen people use sort of like an ice cream scooper to scoop it out. And you're going to need, if you don't have the papers like I do, they come in different colors. If you don't have the muffin or cupcake papers, and sometimes they have decorations like for parties or different pictures on them, then you would have to like put some grease so that it doesn't stick when you put it into the muffin tin. So, or same thing that you would make cupcakes out of. So I picked Casamont colors. There's green and yellow for the Dynamite Dragons. And I'm choosing to make the large size. So I'm going to do 4 and 4, because 4 plus 4 makes 8. And I'm going to do 4 green and then 4 yellow. And these stick together, so you want to be careful and make sure you're pulling them apart, and you just have one little paper cupcake or muffin wrapper in there. And sometimes people even put like a little non-stick around the edge, but I'm using a non-stick pan, so you don't really, unless yours is a real sticky pan, then you might want to put that around the edge of the muffin. So I'm going to take my little scooper and I'm going to fill these pretty full. I will fill it almost all the way to the top. It's like 3/4, maybe even a little bit more than 3/4 or about 90%. Not quite, but pretty close to the top. I'm just going to use all of the mix that I have. Now, I learned a little trick, which some of your parents may already know this, but if you are doing the nice giant size muffins and not going to make them smaller, and you're going to fill up and use, if you have all 12 filled, that's great. But if you have empty ones, the key is you use some water to put in the empty ones. So I'll put a little bit of water, that way everything will bake even. It helps it bake evenly. Okay, so I've put all the batter into the muffin pan, and I'm ready to bake them in a moment. First, remember I told you I'm doing the big extra large muffins. If you want regular size, you could do 10. It's really gonna make super tiny ones if you do a dozen. So a lot of the muffin tins and cupcake pans come in for a dozen, like this one. So then you just, the trick is you add some water to help them all, then everything bakes evenly. So you just want to be careful the water doesn't get into your muffins. I had preset my oven to 400, and I may not have mentioned that. So if I forgot to say that, you're supposed to prepare the oven, and it's called preheating, and your parents know a lot about that. And the temperature is 400. That'll be on the chart. So I've got it all set, and I make sure that it's heated up. It's heated to 400, and I don't want to spill the water or knock anything over into it, so I'm going to put it in there. And it should take about 20 minutes. The whole time to make the muffins, they say it's about 30 minutes from this recipe, about 10 to get everything together. It probably seems a little longer because I was telling you and talking about the stories ahead of time, but the actual prep time, get everything set up, mixing it together is about 10 minutes, and then another 20 minutes in the oven. So once it's in the oven, you want to put your timer. You need to start your timer. It might, depending on your oven, be done in 15. So we'll start with 15 and check them, and then you use a toothpick. I'll show you in a little bit. You stick the toothpick, and when you stick it into people do it for cupcakes as well, or the muffin, you stick it inside and it should come out clean. This is a way to check cookies and stuff, which you may have heard of. So I'll look for toothpicks, so when they come out, I will check it. It should be a nice golden brown. Oh, and there's one thing I forgot to mention. You can cook them just as they are, or the recipe says an extra added thing, which I think I'm gonna pull those out real fast and add a little bit of sugar onto the top. It says you only need like about a tablespoon. So remember I told you teaspoon was TSP, the small one, the capital T. So it's the bigger size measurement, and then you just kind of sprinkle that around the top, makes it a nice little crust. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back with you. They're in the oven baking. I've cleaned up all my mess, and you hear that? I set the timer so the alarm goes off after, first I tried 15 minutes, they weren't quite done. So I added another 5 minutes to make it 20 minutes. They're looking pretty brown. I wonder if I should put them in a little longer. I don't know, they look pretty good. Some are browner than the others. Quite sure, but I did add a little bit of sprinkle of sugar on the top, and that's optional. So they look nice and big. They all puffed up, and that's the secret to the baking powder that makes them rise. So again, if you don't want them quite this big, you could do 10 or 10 regular size, or do little, you could do a lot more mini muffins, but then you have to cook it a lot less time. So, I don't know, what do you think? You look pretty close to this. When you're making a big mess in the kitchen, you gotta make sure you clean all that up and have your parents help you when the oven's involved, and help you with the hot things. And I usually use these hot pads to sort of burn myself. All right, well, they look really yummy. And you might want to try making the butter that Miss Lycan taught you how to make in the orange juice, and you'll have your juice and butter with your blueberry muffins. Alrighty then, have a good day. Bye from Mrs. Norman. See you next time.